Yo, what's up guys? It's Stricken, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my Rainbow Six Siege operator tier list for Year 9 Season 2 for Operation New Blood. This isn't my normal kind of content, as I do usually post R6 Marketplace videos, but I did want to do something different today because the new season is right around the corner here on June 11th, so if you guys like this kind of content, definitely comment down below and let me know if I should make more of it. But yeah, let's get into it. This video is going to be a little bit different than my normal videos, as I'm not going to do as much editing. I'm kind of just going to do more of a one-take style and have more of like a commentary type of videos, so definitely let me know what you guys think of this style down below. But starting off here, we have Sledge. Now, to me, Sledge used to be one of the best operators in the entire game because he had one of the best primaries on attack. He had the SMG-11, he had the nades, and he has his hammer for the soft destruction, the gadget destruction. He was amazing. I think he was an A tier or S tier operator, but then they took away his SMG-11. I think they made him slower. He just doesn't feel as good as he used to, so I'm going to put Sledge in B tier for now. Next up, we've got Thatcher. I'm going to go ahead and put Thatcher in A tier. Thatcher used to be one of the best no-brain picks in the entire game because you could just go Thatcher, throw an EMP, it would destroy everything on the wall. But then he got nerfed, and his EMP nade no longer destroys things, it only temporarily disables them. So for that, I'm going to put him in A tier. He's still the best EMP in the game, but there are many alternatives now. You can run drones such as Brava, Twitch, or Flores to get rid of stuff. You could play Maverick, you can use verticality, you can use nades, you can use zero, you can use EMP nades on many other operators. So there's multiple other alternatives to EMPs now. So Thatcher is still a great pick, but he's not the S tier operator that he used to be. Next, we've got Smoke, and personally, I think Smoke is an S tier operator. He used to be even better because he had his own deployable shield, but now to be most beneficial, you probably want to have a teammate bring that deployable shield still, or having a zombie, something like that. But Smoke is crucial to have on multiple objectives in this game, including things like Oregon Basement, where half of the entire hold is based off of Smoke. So he is definitely a great operator still when you have that shield. Even without it, it's still good. But that denial is key. Rainbow Six Siege is all about time and it's all about execution. And when you have smoke canisters going off that last 15 seconds each, he's got 3 of them. So you have 45 seconds of instant denial at any time. So you have to really work around him and play as a team to get rid of him. It's very difficult. So he is just a very, very good operator. And his brother Mute is going to go right next to him. Mute is one of the best denial characters in this entire game. Personally, Mute is my personal favorite denial character in the entire game. His jammers can deny gadgets, hard breaches, soft breaches, drones, all kinds of things. Not to mention that also when you have a Mute jammer within your vicinity, you're immune to Lion calls, you're immune to Dokkaebi calls, you're immune to Jackal and Deimos. So Mute is just an amazing character all around. Not to mention that he gets a shotgun, which is the best shotgun in the game. So he can have destruction and close range capability, but he also gets the best secondary in the game as well in the SMG-11. So he can also fight the long range battles. So Mute is the most well-rounded defender from the beginning of the game, in my opinion, and he's going to stick right there in S tier. Next up, we've got Ashe. Now, Ashe is one of those characters that has fluctuated on how good she truly is from the beginning of the game until now. She used to be the go-to operator on attack. Everybody would try to get her. Then she got a bunch of recoil nerfs. She got some other nerfs. She lost her ACOG. A lot of bad things happened to Ashe, so she got worse. And now she's really good again because she has the ACOG on the R4C. And I'm pretty sure she has the ACOG on the G36C as well. So she has an amazing kit. Not to mention her gadget is still very useful. You can destroy pretty much anything in the game that isn't reinforced with her gadget, so it's very useful. I think that she is not a necessity to have on your team, but she is definitely an amazing operator to have. She's a 3-speed and she feels so crispy to use. I don't know how to explain it, but when you're on Ashe, you just feel so much faster than when you're on any other operator in the game, in my opinion. So personally, I would put her in A tier, but for necessity and purposes of this list, I'm going to put her at the front of B, just because there's other alternatives that you can use to get rid of things. All she truly has is her 2 gadgets, and then after that, she's pretty useless. She can have claymores or breaching charges, but you can have alternatives for that. So as you'll notice on this list, operators that have alternatives that do things better are usually going to be above characters that do the same thing. Next, we've got Thermite. Now, personally, I think Thermite is the best hard breacher specifically just for hard breaching in the game. He can open any reinforced wall that's not electrocuted or hatch, and he can also do some cool tricks with his gadgets. So if a hatch is electrified with a Cade Claw from below and the floor is wooden right next to it, you can actually put the thermite charge on the floor next to the hatch and blow it up, even if it's electrified. So he has some cool little versatile tricks that you can use like that as well. You can use it as a normal breaching charge, so you can go into any soft wall as well. The reason I'm going to put him in A tier and not S tier despite all of that is because I think that there's another hard breach that has more versatility and can do the same things as Thermite. So I think Thermite is the second best overall hard breacher in the game. You guys will see who I think is better later on, but for right now, Thermite's going to be an A tier. You always cannot go wrong with Thermite, but you could always maybe do a little bit better too sometimes. So it's definitely situational. Thermite's never bad, but there definitely is better options most of the time. Next, we've got Castle. Now, Castle is a very controversial operator because depending on the rank you play in, you will see how good or bad this operator truly is. Now, personally, I play up in the higher ranks on PC, so I know how crazy good this operator can be, and I'm going to put him in A tier. Castle can shut off any area of any map at any time and give you a whole new site setup that gives you brand new options and alternatives to hold sites that you would have never imagined. For example, on Clubhouse, Castle has 20 to 30 spots that you could put a castle down and it would benefit you in an amazing way. Castle has so many different options, not to mention that he has the super shorty secondary, so he can make rotations, head holes, he can blast people up close if he needs to. He also gets beepers or a bulletproof cam. So not only do you get 4 gadgets that shut off any area that give you intel of where someone is and forces them to use utility to destroy it, but you also get a shotgun to make rotates, feet holes, and sight setup, and you get a gadget as your secondary gadget for intel, whether that's beepers or a bullet. So he has sight setup, sight destruction, and intel. He is an amazing character. His gun, to be fair, the only setback with Castle is he has one of the worst guns in the game, but it makes up for it because he gets an ACOG on it. So personally, if you're looking for a new character to play and you love changing the sight up and making it better, Castle is a great option. Just make sure you're not castling in between sights. Make sure you're not castling your teammates out of sight. Make sure they make sense for everybody. Next up, we've got Pulse. Now, back in the day, Pulse used to be one of the best operators on defense because there was only one operator you could play to counter him, and that was IQ. So back in the day, Pulse would have been probably an S or A tier, but in today's standards, I realistically think that he is in B tier. The intel you can gain off of him is amazing, and if you have the right teamwork, you can get amazing plays with Pulse. You can get good intel that you can't get on any other operator. Pulse is one of the only operators that can give you intel on an enemy that is outside. Now, that is really important because it allows you to know how many people are in and out of the building without actually having to go on a camera or check outside for yourself. So Pulse is definitely really good. You can have C4s from below that have people through your heartbeat scanner. So he's definitely still viable, but he's just not essential. Many other operators on defense do a lot better things than he does and can give better intel than he can. So back in the day, Pulse was one of the best defenders, but as of today, I think that he is a B tier operator. And honestly, I think he's on the edge of being a C tier operator, but the fact that he still has his C4 and an ACOG is what saves him. But the fact that he still has his C4 and he's a 3-speed is what saves him into the B, is what puts him into the B tier, in my opinion. Next up, we've got Twitch. Now, Twitch is a very hit or miss operator. It definitely depends on what you're playing against and what kind of team you're playing against. If you're playing against people who love to run utility and run gadgets, then Twitch is definitely a great option as it gives you more value. But if you're playing against a team who's using shields and Azami and not using anything that you can electrify, there's not really a point in playing Twitch because it's just 2 extra drones. And at that point, you can just play someone else. So Twitch is definitely a hit or miss operator. I think she's very, very useful situationally, but she's not a necessity. I think that Twitch is the very front of C tier. I love that they gave her gadget infinite range, but the F2 does have a decent amount of recoil, and the fact that her taser only does 1 damage now instead of 5 definitely limits what you can do with her other than utility destruction and droning. So she's definitely a great operator situationally. In certain cases, she could be an S tier operator, but for a round to round basis, I think that she's a C tier operator. Next up, we've got Monty. Now, Monty is very, very annoying to deal with no matter how good you are or what rank you are, and for that reason alone, I think he is a solid A tier operator. Not to mention with the shield reworks, you can free look and reload behind your shield, and the new animation it makes when you melee someone, how it just knocks them into vulnerability, kind of like a Nomad Charge or an Oryx Dash. It's just very frustrating to go against, and Monty is very good because you can cover your entire body and not get shot. You can turtle plant successfully. He still has smoke grenades and hard breaches, so Monty can literally be a hard breacher and a shield operator, which is just crazy to even say. But yeah, Monty is a great option. If you know what you're doing and you have a good team to play behind you, he is definitely an amazing operator every single time, no matter what objective you're playing on. So for those reasons alone, I think Monty is an A tier operator. I think he is the best shield operator in the entire game by far. Next up, we've got Doc. Now, Doc is an OG classic for everybody who's ever played this game, and I really think that he is still a viable option. I think he is a much better pick than Thunderbird because he gives you that full health instantly. You can shoot the stim to an injured teammate, so if your teammate goes down right in front of you or behind a wall or something, you can shoot it from any range with good accuracy and hit them and revive them back up to full health from being injured. I think the fact that he can heal any teammate from any location is very good compared to Thunderbird, who just puts her charges down and can heal very slowly, compared to Thunderbird, who just has to have stationary charges that give you like 30 health per charge. So while we're here, I think I'm gonna go ahead and grab Thunderbird and put her in the D tier. Now, I think that she's a cool option. Having an operator that can heal you is definitely nice, but it's nothing crazy, and it's not going to get the job done every single time like Doc is. And the only thing I'll say that Thunderbird has going for her that Doc doesn't is the fact that when she dies, she can still heal her teammates, but there's a lot of times where a Thunderbird will put her gadget in a location, and then the enemy will eventually take that location. So not only do you lose the healing capability, but now the enemy gains it. So that is definitely a high risk, high reward option if you want to have a healer. Doc also has the bailiff, so he has sight destruction. He can make rotates, head holes, feet holes. So personally, I think Doc is the much better option. I'm going to put Doc in B tier because while Doc is very nice, it is absolutely unnecessary to have it. It is just, Doc is simply a luxury to have in any lineup. If you have the open space, then he's a great flex operator for sure because he can also bring the barbed wire. Healing is not a necessity in this game due to the one-shot headshot mechanics, so I am going to keep Doc in B tier. While in the healing category, I might as well go ahead and grab Finka and put her in the B tier as well. For the same reasons as Doc, she can heal her teammates at any time from any location and revive injured teammates. So if a defender knocks your teammate, you can revive them with a simple Finka boost, and she gets 3 of them. When Finka first came out, you didn't used to get to keep the health. It would give you a temporary stim, and then you would lose it. So that was really bad, but now they've made it to where you keep the health. So you can end up finishing the round on 80 health and be just fine. So Finka is definitely a great option. She has 2 amazing primaries with the spear, with an ACOG, or she can run the LMG, which is my preference. Not to mention that Finka also gets a Gun 6, so she can destroy gadgets from anywhere. She is an amazing kit on attack, but just like Doc, she is a luxury. You do not need a Finka on your team in any round, but if you have the open spot, she is definitely one of the top 5 operators to fill that spot. Next up, we've got Rook. Now, this might be controversial to a lot of people, but I'm gonna go ahead and put Rook in the D tier. Rook has a great gun with an ACOG in the MP5, but that's about it. His gadget is unbelievably situational, and when that's the case and it's not consistent, an operator is never gonna be a good pick. When you can have a consistent gadget that consistently contributes every round, that's how you know you're playing a good operator. And Rook, while he does give 20 health and the ability to revive yourself if you go down, that's all you get. And in a game where there's one-shot headshots, his ability could be useless for every player in an entire round, and that happening is much more common than you'd think. So while he does have a good gun and he is a classic to play, he unfortunately is just not that useful or viable in any really rank at all, and he's more of just for the nostalgia. So let me know what you guys think of Rook down below, but personally I think he's D tier. Next up, we've got Glaz. Now Glaz is an OG classic for sure, but that's about the only good thing about Glaz in my opinion. He's going to be our first F tier operator. Glaz used to be so OP back in the day because the infrared thermal scope through the smoke was instantaneous and you could move while using it. So you could throw a smoke down in the objective, walk straight through the smoke while ADSing, and just laser people through the smoke and they couldn't see you or do anything about it. And now they made it to where you have to stand still and it takes 2 or 3 seconds to have the full capability to see through that smoke. Not to mention the fact that the existence of Warden definitely pushed Glaz back. Warden is an instant counter to so many operators like Glaz that it's useful, but it's cool, but it's easy to counter now, and Glaz just doesn't pack the same punch that he used to. So for those reasons, he's going to be our first operator in F tier. Next up, we've got Fuse, and personally, I think Fuse is a little bit underrated in today's current game. A good majority of objectives have soft destruction capability, and what I mean by that is there's soft walls or soft floors that are made of wood that you can explode or shoot through, and that's Fuse's specialty. So he gets 4 Fuse charges that explode everything in its path. And not to mention, he can put it on reinforced walls now. So if you're looking to get somebody who's trying to bandit trick, you can have somebody put a hard breach charge on the left wall and then you fuse the right wall, or vice versa. You can have that combo to get rid of somebody bandit tricking or cade tricking. There's a lot of cool things you can do with Fuse. Not to mention the fact that he has the AK-12, which is one of the best weapons on attack with an ACOG, and he gets hard breach charges. So you have the ability to be a hard breacher. Something really cool you can do with Fuse on, for example, Canal. If you're attacking the basement objective and they have the hatches above electrified, if you put the Fuse charge right next to the electrified hatch on Canal, you can do it for both of them, and you can actually detonate it and explode the Cade Claw off of the hatch and then open the hatch yourself with the hard breach charge and then laser the people with the AK-12 ACOG. So he is just overall a great kit. Now, he is kind of situational, so for that, I'm going to put him at the end of B tier. His kit is absolutely amazing, and he has great abilities to do anything on attack. But the problem is he's pretty situational and he is kind of slow, so he's not everybody's favorite, but to me, Fuse has a nice spot in my heart. Next up, we've got Capcan. Now, Capcan is one of the best trappers in this entire game. He gets 5 traps that he can stack on any doorway in the game. I think he's super good because there's a lot of random doors and windows that you can put his traps on that people just won't expect. And I think it's much better when you do that instead of putting it on common doorways, because when people see that they have a Capcan, they're going to expect them on the common doorways. So when you can put them in tricky spots that they're not going to expect, it'll always damage or eliminate somebody. Capcan is one of the best operators on defense because even after he dies, he still has that post-mortem value with his traps. Not to mention the fact that he has one of the best guns in the Y9S2 and he gets impacts or a C4. His overall kit is super amazing. So because of all that, I think he's going to go in the B tier. Next up, we've got Blitz. Now, Blitz is just like Monty in the sense that he is very, very annoying to deal with after this shield rework. It's very frustrating because he can also flash you, but he does have to get super close to be able to flash you. And in the process, it makes him vulnerable. So you can shoot his feet, his shoulders, you can try and shoot his head. So there's a lot of different ways you can eliminate Blitz before he can actually get to you. Unlike Monty, where he can fully cover himself with his shield and push you. So Blitz is definitely a great option for shields. He gets breaching charges or smokes, so he can basically do what Monty does, but not quite as well. He's more of an aggressive shield than a defensive shield like Monty is. So because of all that, I think he belongs in the B tier. He's still very good, but not as good as Monty. Next up, we've got IQ. Now, personally, I think IQ is very underrated. Most objectives in this game have destruction capability vertically and horizontally, and that's IQ's specialty. She can go below you or on the other side of a wall and shoot a gadget without exposing herself. And that is one of the most amazing things that an operator can do in this game. Not to mention that she has probably the best weapon selection of any attacker and she gets grenades. So she is a very good operator for those reasons. She can also see things that nobody else on the map can. For example, if they have a Vigil or a Pulse with his scanner out, or a Soulless with her scanner out, anything with a gadget on defense that has to be pulled out or used actively, she can detect it through walls and tell her team, hey, there's a pulse below that we didn't see before, now we know he's there. So she has a lot of cool capabilities. She can see the bomb site location through walls, so if you didn't drone it in prep phase or you don't know where it's at, you can find it that way. So in my opinion, she's very, very underrated, and for that reason, she's going to go in the B tier. Next up, we've got the main man, Jaeger. Now, Jaeger is definitely one of the most iconic operators in this game's history. His gun has always been super solid. Even when they tried changing it a bunch of times, people still loved his gun. His kit was definitely broken for a long time. Each ADS used to zap 3 grenades each, so you could just put 3 ADSs in any location and they would never be able to burn it with grenades to be able to explode it. So it was definitely very unfair, and he was much better than Wamai at the time. Since then, they have nerfed it to where his ADS can only get 1 gadget and then it resets after a certain amount of time. So it's definitely very easy to bypass an ADS. It's still a very useful gadget, and his gun is still very nice, but his gadget isn't not nearly as useful as it used to be. He's still a great operator, but for that reason, he's going to go in B tier. Next up, we've got Bandit. Now, Bandit is probably the best wall denial in the game because he can do what's called bandit tricking. So if someone destroys or EMPs one of his bandit boxes, he can place another one down right away and electrocute whatever they're trying to put on the wall. He can stack his bandit boxes now on the wall, so you don't have to pick one up to place one down. So that's definitely very nice and convenient. He's definitely the best electricity operator of the game, so I'm going to put him in A tier. He has the MP7, which is a pea shooter, but it's a headshot clicker, and he gets a C4 for tricky situations, so Bandit is definitely a really good operator. Next up, we've got Buck. Now, Buck has seen a lot of changes over the years. He used to have grenades, which made him honestly pretty broken. He could buck open a floor below you and throw up a nade through it, and it would get you. And back when you could cook grenades, it was even more broken because he could buck a certain spot to make you not be able to stand there, and then the spot that you could stand in, you could just grenade it from below. So you could literally eliminate people without them ever having a chance to contest you, and that was pretty broken. So I think it was a good change for Buck to lose his grenades, but they gave him hard breach charges instead. So because of that, Buck is the best breaching operator period in the game, in my opinion, because he gets those hard breach charges and his skeleton key. His skeleton key is very cool because if you run out of ammo, you can switch to your shotgun real quick in tricky situations. Not to mention he has the Golden 6, which allows him to destroy almost any gadget on the map. So in total, he can destroy gadgets, reinforced walls, soft walls, hatches, reinforced hatches, pretty much anything on the map. He can destroy it, which is very, very convenient for one operator. So yeah, because of that, I'm going to go ahead and put Buck in the A tier. Next up, we've got Frost. Now, Frost, in my opinion, is one of the best rankless operators in the game. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter how good or bad you are, what rank you're in, if it's high or low, Frost will always be viable and she will always be useful. Frost is definitely underrated because people think her gadget isn't as good as it actually is. Even when the Frost Mat doesn't kill somebody, they have to shoot the Frost Mat for them to not die. So you'll hear them shoot those bullets and you'll know that there's somebody there. So Frost is good because if the Frost Mat does work, you get a free kill with it. If it doesn't work, you'll get intel and you'll know where somebody is. So she's one of the trap operators that not only trap, but give you intel in the process. Not to mention that she has an amazing primary weapon with an ACOG. She gets the best secondary shotgun in the entire game, so she can do site destruction, whether that's rotates or head holes. And she gets a deployable shield that she can put anywhere and protect herself and your teammates. So Frost is definitely a very underrated operator in my opinion. She's never really a bad operator to bring. So for all of that, I'm going to put her in A tier. Next up, we've got Blackbeard. Now, Blackbeard has a rework coming in Season 4 of this year, so he is going to change from his current build. As of right now, Blackbeard is an F tier operator. Other than the fact that he gets 2 plastic saran wrap shields to cover his face from 1 bullet, His gadget is absolutely useless. His gadgets are mid. He gets flashes and breaching charges, which with how slow he is, it's almost kind of redundant to bring flashes because you can't act on it. Blackbeard is just a bad operator. He doesn't bring anything useful to the table. He doesn't contribute anything to the team whatsoever. He is purely a frag operator, and when you're playing in higher ranks, one bullet to the head usually isn't going to save you with the reaction time. So Blackbeard is going to go in F tier. Up next, we've got Valkyrie. Now, Valkyrie is by far the best intel operator in the entire game. She has 3 cameras that you can throw in any location on any map. And it's so good because you can throw them in so many spots where defenders will just never know that they're there. And with the introduction of yellow Z pings, it makes it to where you can ping people live in any room that you have a camera and they'll never even know that they're being pinged. So the fact that you get free intel on people like that and that you get 3 cameras is crazy. The MPX by all means is not a bad weapon whatsoever, and she gets a really good secondary in the Deagle that actually does have destruction capability, so you can make head holes and feet holes with the Deagle. And she gets a C4, so if you want, you could use a C4 from below and kind of play it like Pulse, where you can have a camera and then throw a C4 and then blow up the C4 when you see the guy on the camera. So there's so many good things you can do with Valkyrie. After she dies, she can watch her own cameras or have other dead teammates watch those cameras. So you can have somebody giving intel and having useful gadget 24/7. So because of that, I'm going to put her at the front of S tier. Next up, we've got Capitao. Now, Capitao used to be pretty cool back in the day as he was the only character that had fire capability, but now we've got Goyo, we've got Tachanka, and fire just isn't as useful as it used to be back in the day. Capitao, when played correctly in high ranks, is absolutely clutch, but it's very, very, very situational. So he's not a bad operator. His gadget is cool. He can shoot 2 fire bolts and 2 smoke canisters. So he's definitely pretty cool and unique. His guns aren't bad. He's a 3-speed, but what's holding him back, in my opinion, is how situational he is. You can't bring him every time and get tremendous value out of it like you can with other operators. So because of that, I'm going to put him in C tier. Next up, we've got Cav. Now, in standard or casual, Cav is so fun to play because people don't care, people don't drone. But when you're playing ranked and when you're playing against people who actually care and see that there's a Cav, they're going to drone that Cav and push her together until she's gone, because you know in the back of your head the whole round that she is going to flank you. So you might as well deal with her when you can. So people know how to deal with her. Her ability in Silent Step is cool, but if you drone her out, you know where she's going to be or where she has to go to escape you. So because of all that, I think Cav is very bad now. She's very fun, but not good. So F tier is where Cav is going to go. Next up, we've got Hibana, which is one of the best hard breaching characters in the entire game. I think that she is underrated for sure. She can open any hatch on any map as long as it is unelectrified. And if it is electrified, she can even trick it and open them when the floor is wooden next to the hatch. So there's a lot of scenarios where you can still open hatches even when they're electrified, which is really cool. You can't do that with hard breach charges. She can burn things such as Aruni gates. So if there's an Aruni gate in your way, you can change the pellets to 2 and shoot 2 pellets through it. You can open soft walls, you can open pretty much anything. You can destroy zombie gadgets with it. So not only is Hibana a hard breacher, but you can also destroy other things with her gadget. She's a 3-speed with an amazing gun on attack that has an ACOG, and she gets flash grenades. So Hibana has an amazing kit. She is an amazing operator, but she is pretty situational, as you could usually just run a hard breach charge or thermite or ace. So I'm going to have her towards the front of B tier, but she is definitely a great operator nonetheless. Next up, we've got Echo. This is an amazing operator on defense, and he used to be even more broken back in the day. There used to be invisibility in Siege. Echo drones and C and goo mines used to be invisible. You could not see them, you could not find them unless you looked effortlessly, and they were so hard to see. Now you can see them clear as day. I think it's a great change to get rid of that, but Echo is a great operator as he has cameras that he can move around the map at any time. He can deny the plant with them last second, so you can literally win the round without having to shoot a bullet. Echo is a great option because he also gives you intel, so even when he dies, you can still see the objectives or wherever he has his cameras at. He can hide them when he needs to in a bookshelf or cabinets. So there's definitely a lot of cool things you can do with Echo, not to mention that he gets a great weapon with an ACOG and a great secondary and a deployable shield. So Echo is definitely a great option still. I don't think he's used as much just because of how situational he is, but I definitely think he still is a viable option, so I'm going to put him in A tier. Next, we have Jackal. Jackal is by far one of the most annoying and banned operators in the history of Rainbow Six Siege, and that's because he can scan the feet of anybody who has been on the map in the vicinity within the last 30 to 60 seconds. It's just crazy. When you get your feet scanned by somebody who isn't even near you, and then he can just hunt you down because you're getting live pinged and you don't know where you're being pinged from, it's very annoying. He gets amazing weapons between the PDW and his other weapon. He gets a shotgun secondary, so he can literally breach if he needs to. He gets an ACOG, so he has a lot of great things going for him. When you have a good team that can play around him, it's unfair. So yeah, that is why he's always banned. And because of that, Jackal is going to go towards the front of A tier. Next, we have Mira. Now, Mira has gotten a lot of changes recently. She used to be a lot more OP than she is now. Personally, I think Mira used to be an S tier operator until she got changed. You can now break the glass on her Mira, so you can melee it, you can shoot a Kali charge at it, you can shoot an Ash charge at it. For some reason, the Zofia charge doesn't break it, but a lot of other things do, so it is a lot easier to counter now. You can also play verticality on a Mira, so you could go above them and try and get them that way a lot of the time. So I do think she is a great option. The Vector is a wonderful weapon. She gets a shotgun secondary for destruction capability. Her C4 is really nice, but I don't think she's as good as she used to be. I think she's definitely still towards the front of A tier, but I don't think she's S tier worthy anymore. Next up, we've got Ying. Now, anybody who has played against a Ying knows how absolutely unbearable it is to go against a Ying Candela charge. It is one of the most annoying things in the game, and not many people know that you can shoot them before they go off, so a lot of people just take the flash, and Ying isn't hit by her own flash, so she can just flash out everybody in the objective and go laser them down, no problem. However, when you have a Warden or a Wamai or a Jaeger, there's a lot of counters you can do to get rid of a Ying. You can hold crossfires with your teammates and not get blinded, so you are able to counter it, and it is pretty situational, so Ying is a good operator with a good kit. I'm pretty sure she has hard breaches too, so she can hard breach if she needs to, but she's not always going to be useful, and so because of that, I'm going to put her in the B tier. Next up, we've got Lesion. Lesion is an amazing trap operator who used to be even better than what he is now, but Lesion is so good. His T5 SMG is absolutely amazing, one of the best guns on defense. His super shorty gives you the ability to make destruction anywhere, so you can make rotates, head holes, all that kind of stuff. And his gadget is where it comes into play. Any operator that has a gadget where you get multiple of them over time are always going to be the best operators in the game, because they're giving you a cooldown on your gadget, and they wouldn't do that if there wasn't a reason to. So the fact that Lesion gets 9 or 10 goo mines throughout the entire round, you can block off 10 doorways with Lesion. 10 different doorways you can have covered. So if they walk into the goo mine, not only will they take damage and have to take it out, but you'll also get intel of where they are. And if they don't run into it, they usually have to shoot it. And when they shoot it, you'll hear the bullets. So even when the gadget doesn't get somebody, you'll still hear where they are. It does damage over time, so if you're in a clutch situation and they don't have time to pull it out, it does damage and will kill them that way. So Lesion is just a great operator. They did take his impacts, which does give him a pretty big nerf, but he still gets observation blockers and another good gadget to go with it. So Lesion is definitely one of the best operators in the whole game still. I'm going to put him in S tier. Next up, we've got Ella. Now, Ella used to be really good because the stun from her concussion used to be a lot better. It used to shake your screen around. It would make it more blurry. It would make your audio distorted. So it used to be super good. And her Scorpion used to be absolutely broken, but now she's kind of just obsolete. You get 3 mines that tell you, hey, there's an enemy over here, and they get stunned for about 5 seconds, and that's it. You get a Scorpion that is a mid weapon, in my opinion. It's kind of good, but not anything special. And a deployable shield, which you could just use on a different operator that has a better ability. So Ella, in my opinion, is not horrible, but she's definitely not really useful or that great anymore. So because of that, I'm going to put her in D tier. Next up, we've got Dokkaebi. Now, Dokkaebi is by far one of the best attackers in the entire game. Her DMR is absolutely amazing as it gets 21 shots and an ACOG, and she gets an SMG-12, so she can have any situation covered at a gunfight. The fact that she gets 2 abilities instead of 1 is really nice. She can call defenders and make a very loud audio cue of where everybody is on the map and make them have to stop and turn off their phone. And once you kill somebody, you can pick up their phones and hack their cameras. So if they're running Valkyrie or anybody who's on a camera, you can hack those cameras and now use their intel against them. So Dokkaebi is a great operator. She is a 3-speed, and she can bring EMP grenades. So you don't even have to bring a Thatcher. You could bring a Dokkaebi and get all this extra stuff with it. So because of that, Dokkaebi's value is going to put her in S tier. Next up, we've got Vigil. Now, Vigil, like Ella, used to be a lot better back in the day, but now it's pretty obsolete. There's not really many good things you can do with it. You can roam, which is nice, but there's so many things somebody can do to counter you, and it shows that Vigil cloak on the drone, so even though it doesn't show where you are, it shows them your general vicinity, so they can just keep sending more drones. They could use Dokkaebi calls or like Lion calls, and they could pin you down and get you pretty easily. So if you're a good Vigil player and you know what you're doing, you can definitely take advantage of people with it, but in most situations and most high rank gameplay, Vigil is not going to be that great, so I'm going to go ahead and put him in C tier. Next, we have Zofia. Now, Zofia has had a lot of changes over the years. Her AR got absolutely nerfed into oblivion for a couple years, and they just recently fixed it and brought it back to being healthy again. It has the ACOG, and she has an LMG with an ACOG, so you can pick between 2 really good primaries. The secondary is really good. She gets claymores or breaching charges, which is pretty typical for operators like her. And she gets stuns. So what makes her better than Ashe is she gets 2 Ashe charges essentially, and she gets 2 stuns. So if you know that they have 2 ADSs, or if they have Wamai magnets or something that you need to get rid of before you can explode something, you can shoot those stuns to get rid of those charges, and then you can shoot the explosives to get rid of the shield or the Azami or whatever it was you're trying to get rid of. So she's definitely a lot better than Ashe in that sense, but she is a bit slower and her weapons may not be as good as Ashe, so I am going to put her on the same tier as Ashe in the B tier, but she definitely is very good. Next, we have Lion. Lion used to be the most broken character in the game when he was initially released. It would scan everybody 3 times and give active pings of every player actively on the map, and it was just absolutely broken. They did fix him, and he has been in a decent state for a long time now. He has a great LMG weapon with an ACOG. He gets a great secondary. His gadget is very useful because if you know where somebody is, you can use a lion charge to make sure that they don't run away, and then you can pinch them with a teammate. So it's definitely situational, but when you have to take care of that, it is definitely great to have a lion. He can bring EMP grenades, which is very useful. So he overall is just a wonderful operator to have. He's nothing special, but he definitely is a nice flex role. So while he does have good utility and a good kit, overall, it is extremely situational, so I'm going to put him at the front of C tier. Next up, we have Maestro. Now, for some reason, out of nowhere, they decided to give Maestro a 3rd camera. I'm not sure if his pick rate was bad or if his efficiency rate was bad, but I don't think he personally needed a 3rd camera, and the fact that they gave him one makes him an amazing operator for most objectives. The fact that you get 3 cameras that can zap anything, including players, gadgets, utility, you name it, you can zap it. It can be moved around by your teammates, so even after you die, you still have 3 extra cameras that contribute to your teammates. You get an amazing LMG with 81 bullets, so you have to never reload basically. You get the Bailiff pistol, so you can make rotates and head holes. Maestro has an amazing kit. The problem is Valkyrie does it so much better. Echo does it so much better. So while he is a great operator, he is very situational and he doesn't always get the job done as well as others. So for those reasons, I'm going to put Maestro at the end of B tier. Next, we have Alibi. Now, Alibi is a pretty unconventional operator. She is technically a trapper and an intel operator, but there are so many better options in both categories that it's pretty obsolete to use her. She has a great gun, but the opticals on it aren't very great, and her secondary is a bailiff, but again, it's just not enough to convince you to use her. Her alibi clones still to this day do not match your player skin, even though they said they were going to add that in the past. So unfortunately, it is very obvious to tell when an alibi clone is actually a clone or a real player, unless that player is not running a skin, but that's very uncommon. So because of all that, I think alibi is going to go into the D tier. Next up, we have Maverick. Now, Maverick is a very situational operator, but he is the best operator at what he does because he's the only one who can do it. Maverick is a operator who can do hard breaching with a blowtorch. So he can make holes, he can make lines, he can open an entire wall, he can do a circle and open a wall. So there's a lot of different things you can do with Maverick. There's a lot of different tricks you can set up with teammates that are on repels to get free kills with Maverick. His blowtorch can also destroy things such as deployable shields, maestro cameras, deployable cameras, anything like that you can destroy with his torch. And it's also funny because you can damage enemies with his torch. So if you injure an enemy, you can finish them with his torch. It's always fun to do that. Unfortunately, they did take away his frag grenades and replace them with stun grenades, but he still is very strong. He has the M4 primary, which is one of the best attacker weapons in the entire game. So Maverick is definitely by far one of the best attackers, but because of how situational he is, it's not going to be likely that you're going to bring him every single time. So because of that, we're going to put him in B tier. Next, we've got Clash. Now, for some reason, Ubisoft decided that shields needed to be on defense too, because deployable shields weren't enough. So we needed a shield just like Monty that fully covers a defender, that can also zap people and slow them down while damaging them simultaneously. So thankfully, we have Clash, and her secondary is an SMG pistol, so she can win gunfights still. She is slow, but that literally does not matter because you're going to have the shield out majority of the time anyways. She is absolutely unbelievably annoying to deal with 99% of the time. The only counters are Finka, like if you Finka boost against her, or if you get a Kali to shoot her shield with the sniper, or maybe a Zofia charge, something that stuns or warps the enemy's vision. You have to use something like that. Clash is just so annoying to deal with. Despite the fact that she is such a nuisance, she's not really a great contribution on defense. So because of that, we're going to put her in C tier. Next up, we've got Nomad. Now, Nomad, in my opinion, is by far the best flank watch operator in the entire game. Her air jabs are very hard to get when they're done right, and they send you flying when you go into them. So if you get hit by one of them and there's somebody near you, you are most likely going to die every single time. She has two amazing primary weapons that both get an ACOG. She has nice secondaries. She has flash grenades, so she can win gunfights. Nomad is a very, very nice flex operator that can watch your flanks. So even when you die, your teammates are still covered on their backs. So because of that, I think Nomad is an A tier operator. Next up, we've got Cade. Now, just like Bandit, Cade can put electricity on any wall or any shield or barbed wire and deny utility. So what you can do with Cade is really cool because you can throw the electricity. So say they just EMP'd the wall and you know they're gonna hard breach it, you can throw your Cade Claw from anywhere on the objective and Cade trick it. So now they have to deal with your other Cade Claw. Or what I like to do is sometimes put it in barbed wire next to a reinforced wall. So when they walk through that barbed wire or melee it to destroy it, it will always deal damage to them. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with Cade. You can hide the Cade Claws underneath or on the other side of walls, so the enemies will be tricked and not even know how the wall is electrified to begin with. That's always really cool to do. So not to mention the fact he has the TCSG shotgun with an ACOG, so he has sight destruction capability. Cade overall is just an amazing operator. He gets a C4, he gets a pass from me. I'm going to put Cade in the end of A tier. I think Bandit is better, but I think they're in the same category. Next up, we have Gridlock. Now, Gridlock is basically Nomad, but the Walmart version. You cannot do as good as a flank watch as you can do with Nomad that you can do with Gridlock. She still is great. You get 2 smoke grenades, so you can smoke off any objective. You can help a glass if you wanted to. You could do a lot of things with the smoke grenades. You get 4 Gridlock track stinger devices. So not only can you watch the flanks, but then you can use them offensively. So if you're trying to push the objective, you can throw it towards an enemy where you know they are, and then they have to move or stand on the Gridlock tracks and take the damage. So there's a lot of things you can do with her. She has two great weapons that both get an ACOG, and she gets a super shorty secondary, so she has destruction capability, which is always nice. So Gridlock is definitely a wonderful option. She's definitely a really good and underrated operator, but she's very tubby, so she's very slow. And there's other operators that can do what she does better, but by all means, she's not a bad operator, so I'm gonna put her at the end of B tier. Next up, we've got the good old Aussie Mozzie. Now, he has been in the game for a long time now, and in my opinion, I just don't see players picking him because of what he brings to the table. A lot of people like playing Mozzie because of his commando, which you can now run on recruit, so it's kind of obsolete. His reload animation, which is very cool, that's definitely funny, but I don't think that's worth picking an entire operator for that. And he is just very nostalgic. A lot of people used to play really well with Mozzie, so they still like to play him. His gadget is very good. You have the intel denial for drones, but it's not as good as mute or just outright shooting the drone. Now, you can use the drones, but it is so hard to hack a drone and then get it into a spot that is actually useful that by the time you do that, you could have just had someone else use a camera like Valkyrie or Echo or even a Bullet. There's definitely much better options than Mozzie. I think Mozzie has definitely fallen from grace over time. He's not a bad operator per se, but he's nothing special, so I'm going to put him in C tier. Next up, we've got Knock. Now, Knock situationally is a very good operator when you know that there's no barbed wire or gadgets that can stop you from rushing site. It's nice to just break a window, put on her ability, walk right past the default cams, right into objective, but unfortunately, that only gets you up until about silver. People realize that you can use barbed wire, gadgets, you can use stuff to prevent that from happening. So Knock is so unbelievably easy to counter. Not to mention that her guns are pretty mid. They're not bad, but they're nothing special. So her whole kit is just nothing too crazy, and her ability is very useless in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and put Knock in F tier. Next up, we've got Warden. Now, Warden is absolutely amazing still in my opinion. He used to be one of the most played operators a couple years back because he had the 1.5 optics. When they took that away, he did go down. His play rate did go down. His usefulness did not, however. He still gets a deployable shield or a C4, which in my opinion are the absolute two best gadgets you can have as a secondary gadget. He can see through stuns and smoke, which counters about half the attackers in the entire game alone. And he gets the MPX, which is a pretty good weapon. And he's a 3-speed, so he can go from place to place very fast. He can roam and then come back on site, or vice versa. He can do whatever you need him to in any situation. So I think Warden is definitely a great operator still, and I'm going to put him in B tier. Next up, we've got Amaru. Now, Amaru is definitely cool because you can plan entire strategies around the character, but other than that, she is very useless. She gets an LMG or a shotgun that, granted, are pretty good, but pretty useless given the circumstances. She gets an SMG-11, which is probably the only carrying factor for her. She does have the ability to go up hatches, which is very cool. You can plan a sight rush from below. You can have her go on the hatch and then have other people on the rappels or the windows near the objective. She's just very situational and honestly too situational. So in my opinion, because of that, I'm going to put her in D tier. Next up, we've got good old Goyo. Now, Goyo, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated operators in the entire game. He gets 4 Goyo charges that put down 30 plus seconds of fire per detonation, and you can stack them. So you could literally put four Goyo charges on a breach, shoot them one by one, and you can hold that breach off with fire for 2 minutes out of 2 minutes and 45 seconds in the entire round that you get. So it honestly is a great gadget. He gets impact grenades, so he can detonate his own Goyo charges. Even if he can't shoot them, he can throw a grenade. He can also explode people with them, make rotates, you know, normal impact grenade stuff. And he gets an ACOG on the vectors, so he gets a wonderful weapon. He has a great kit overall. I think he is very, very underrated, and because of that, I'm going to put him in A tier. Next up, we've got Callie. Now, Callie was the initial introduction to try and compete with Thatcher, because Thatcher was the go-to EMP, electricity, denial, destruction, that this game had. Then they released Callie. They thought that she was going to compete with Thatcher. People were going to pick her instead of Thatcher, but unfortunately they were very wrong. They gave her a bolt action sniper that makes it very hard to have consistent gunfights with people, and her secondary is not very forgiving, as it is one of the worst SMG secondaries in the entire game. She isn't bad, as she can do a lot of things, such as get rid of Miras or deployable shields or zombies, or you know what her gadget is made for, getting rid of electricity or mute jammers. But there's so many other operators that can do it better than her. There's so many alternatives that I would rather play, and that sniper is just so big and bulky and hard to use. So because of that, I honestly think I'm going to put her at the end of C tier, but I really want to put her in D tier, so we might have to go back, but for now I'll put Callie in C tier. Next up, we have Y9S2. Now, this is one of the best operators in the entire game, in my opinion. The fact that you can put an ADS charge essentially anywhere on the map at any point during the round is absolutely broken. You can counter attackers based off where they're pushing. So you could literally save 3 Y9S2 magnets, wait until the enemies push, and then once you see where they're pushing from, you can readjust the sight and throw those magnets later on. So the fact that you get them over time is just absolutely broken. I think that he should probably get like 3 to 5 in total and just get them initially. I think the fact that he gets so many throughout the round is kind of broken, but he can stop stuns. He can stop any projectile like Capitao bolts, Sophia grenades, regular grenades, any kind of grenade, anything that shoots and is a projectile. So he can get ace charges, anything like that, bro. It's crazy how much value Y9S2 truly has. He honestly is probably going to go in S tier. He has the MP5K, which is a top 3 weapon on defense. He gets an ACOG for it. He gets a secondary that can give him destruction capability, so he can make head holes and feet holes. He can do everything that you need to protect the site, basically. So I'm going to keep him in S tier. Next up, we've got Ayana. Now, she is one of the best attackers in the game. I think that she is very underrated to this day. Even though the fact that she lost her frag grenades, she is still unbelievably broken. The fact that you have unlimited drones throughout the round with her Ayana clone is really broken, and you can literally destroy stuff with those clones. So if there is an Aruni gate in your way, you can use the Ayana clone and break it and get it out of your way. You have stun grenades, you get the G36C or the ARX, which are 2 amazing weapons. You get the ability to get constant intel, and if they destroy your intel, you're not losing anything because it's just a clone. So you're not losing a drone, you're not losing a gadget, you're simply just losing what your character was intended for. And it's absolutely amazing. I think Ayana is one of the best characters in the game. I think she's very underutilized, and when you have the right team around her, she is very amazing. So I'm going to put her in A tier. Next up, we've got a very controversial operator in Oryx. Now, Oryx was added the same season as Ayana, and a lot of people think that Oryx is very useless. Honestly, in my opinion, it depends on what rank you play in. Oryx in the lower ranks is very useless because players don't really understand how to use him properly. So they'll just use him to make rotates on site, and then maybe they'll roam around the site, but they're not using him to his full capability. For example, if you're holding a basement objective, you can go around upstairs and destroy every hatch above and play them, and you can actually get the people trying to play vertical on you by playing vertical on them. So it's like 3D chess, bro. It's actually crazy. So Oryx has a lot of great options. The fact that you can go up hatches is really cool. He can destroy those hatches with his bailiff. He has a T5, which is a really good weapon. He honestly is very underrated in my opinion. You can also use the beepers for intel. You can run really fast with his dashes. So not only can you destroy walls, but you can get from one side of the map to the other with 3 dashes, which is super OP. So I think he's very underrated. I'm going to put him in B tier. Next up, we've got my 2 personal favorite operators in the entire game, which is pretty ironic because they were released in the exact same season. First, we have Ace. Now, I think Ace is by far the best overall hard breacher this game has to offer. He's not better than Thermite in the sense that he can't open a wall fully that you can sprint through with 1 ace charge, but you can throw 2 ace charges to make a wall that you can sprint through and then use that 3rd one somewhere else. So he has the same hard breaching capabilities as Thermite, but what makes him better is the fact that he can throw those gadgets to burn ADSs, to burn Y9S2 magnets. He can destroy things such as soft walls. He can destroy things like deployable shields and zombie charges and anything like that. And the fact that you can throw the gadget is so broken. You don't have to walk up to the wall to be able to get rid of it. And that's what makes Thermite so hard, is you can't use him for really any walls inside the map. You got to use him for outside stuff. So I think Ace is by far the most versatile and best hard breacher in the game. The fact that he gets an AK-12 with an ACOG is amazing, and he gets claymores, so you can watch your flank. So very nice operator, very good kit. I think he definitely belongs in S tier. Now, like I said, my other favorite operator right next to Ace would be Melusi. The fact that you get 3 bulletproof gadgets that you can only destroy if you explode them or if you walk into its vicinity and shoot it is crazy. The intel that you get from a Melusi Banshee is actually so underrated. The fact that not only it slows the enemy down when they're in the vicinity of it, but it makes the loudest sound you can imagine. So everybody on the map will now know, hey, there's a player in this Melusi charge over here, watch out. So the fact that it's a trap and intel is so good. Not to mention that she has probably the best gun on defense in the MP5, and she gets an ACOG on it. So that, mixed with the fact that she can bring impact grenades or bulletproof, which are 2 of the best gadgets in the game, her kit overall is just so broken, and she is always going to be a good pick no matter what objective or map you're on. So joining Ace in S tier, I'm going to put Melusi. Next up, we have what I think is one of the best overall operators in the entire game in Zero. Now, Zero can bring the MP7 or his primary AR, both amazing weapons that he can run ACOGs on. Zero can also bring 4 of his gadgets that are shootable cameras that can zap. So not only can you get flank cameras with them, but you can burn ADSs or my magnets with it, and you can use it as intel. Not only can you do all that, but you can use it through soft walls or floors. So you can go below someone or on the other side of a wall from someone and shoot this Zero camera and get intel on both sides of what you're looking at, which is absolutely crazy. And it can also be used by your dead teammates. So you can use it as active intel, you can use it as intel for a flank camera, you can use it as intel for your teammate that has died, and then you can zap with this camera. So you can shoot a camera into the objective, shoot whatever's on the wall, bandit box, mute charge, whatever it is, or like a ADS charge. You can get any gadget in the objective or on the map with this camera, and then it doubles as a flank camera later on. So you get all of that, and then you also get hard breach charges. So you can be a solo hard breacher with 4 flank cameras that can also destroy gadgets, and then you get a Gon 6, dude. How is Zero not more talked about? He is the best overall character in the game. He's just not popular, and he's not used properly within teams, so he's not good to a lot of people. But the fact that you get 4 cameras that can destroy stuff and look through soft walls, an amazing gun, a Gon 6 to destroy anything, and flank cameras, 2 drones, ACOGs, by far the best character in the game. I'm going to put him in A tier because he's not as used as he should be, and there's good reason for that, I'm sure, but I think he is so good, and I'm going to put him in A tier. Next up, we've got Aruni. Now, this is by far one of the best defenders in the game. She's probably my second favorite defender. The fact that she gets gadgets that can just shut off any doorway or window, and it forces you to deal with it, is very broken. The fact that you have to walk through it or throw a gadget through it, you either lose health or you lose a gadget. There is no in between. You have to deal with it. Then she gets a really good DMR with an ACOG. She gets her fist that can make rotates, and then she has a good pistol. So her whole entire kit overall is just very good no matter what the situation is. So because of that, she's going in S tier. Next up, we've got Flores. Now, Flores is a very situational operator. It definitely depends on the map and who you're playing against, if they like to use shields and zombie charges, or if they don't. And you can definitely capitalize on a lot of teams using Flores. He has good intel, and he can destroy basically anything on the map, so you can use him to get rid of people holding a shield or in a zombie barricade in certain areas, and then you can push on it. So while he's not the main operator you're going to bring, he's definitely a great flex and support operator. So because of that, I'm going to put him in B tier. Next up, we've got Osa. Now, Osa was the attempt to put deployable shields on attack, and personally, I think it was a very weird and unique concept. I think the execution was a little off. The fact that they're clear is definitely very weird, and you can break them. It's just a very weird gadget. It's very situational. There's definitely some strategies you can use, but I think she's very mid. There's There's nothing really you can do with it other than doing your own thing. So yeah, her PDW is nice, the EMP grenades are nice, but other than that, I don't think it's worth it. So I'm gonna put Osa in C tier. Next up, we've got Thorn. Now, when Thorn was first released, she was absolutely broken. She had the 1.5 scope, her gadget went off a little bit quicker, and it was very hard to deal with. But now you can just shoot it or you can run away from it. It goes off and it's very loud and it gives you plenty of time to react to it. So it's not as useful as, say, like a Capcan or like a Legion or Frostmat, but it definitely still is a useful trap. I think the deployable shield and the ACOG on her gun is definitely the redeeming quality that makes this character better. I think she's not great, but she's not terrible, so I'm gonna put her in C tier. Next up, we've got a banger operator, and that is Azami. Now, you guys have heard me refer to this character and her gadget many times throughout this video, and it's for good reason. Azami charges are basically bigger and better deployable shields that you can put anywhere on the map, and you get 5 of them. So the capabilities of this gadget are unbelievable. You can throw it and parkour into spots that you've never been able to get before. You can use it as shield. You can build a fortress, like a little house, and prep it, and then when you hear somebody, you can break one of them to break all of them, like a stack of cards. It's crazy, all the things you can do with Azami. Not to mention, she gets the 9x19, which is the same gun Capcan has, and a Deagle, so she gets destruction capability. She also has impact grenades, so she can impact her own zombie and catch you off guard. There's so many things you can do with her. Even though they nerfed her to where you can shoot her gadget and it's not indestructible still, it's still such a great operator, so I'm gonna put Azami in S tier. Next up, we've got Sense. Now, Sense, in my opinion, is the worst operator that they've added in a very long time. I think Sense is very useless. It's just smoke grenades, but taller and a little bit different. I think there's a lot of operators who bring a better kit that can do basically the same thing Sense does. The weapons are kind of lacking and the utility overall is just not there. There's a lot of cool strategies and things you can do with Sense, but overall the kit and everything is just not that good. So I'm gonna put Sense in D tier. Next up, we've got Grim. Now, Grim on release was absolutely terrible. I think that everybody could agree he was very underwhelming, he was very situational, and nobody really cared about him. Now, the way that the bees work, you shoot the canister and the bees spread, so you can kind of use it like an air jab or a gridlock. So if you know where somebody is, you can shoot the bee canister at them and either force them to move somewhere else and catch them off guard, or you'll know where they're at and you can have the advantage. So either way, it benefits the player using it. And he also gets a bailiff, so he has destruction capability. He gets the Commando 552, which is an amazing gun that IQ has. His gadget can be used in a lot of different ways. You can rush with it, you can be passive with it, you can use it to clear enemies. So Grim honestly definitely got a good revival. They definitely boosted him up to where he needed to be from where he was. And because of that, I'm going to put him in B tier, ironically. Next up, we have Solus. Now, this tier list is for Year 9 Season 2. So Solus, before this season, would have been an S tier, probably at the front. Now, Solus is being nerfed in 4 different ways. The gadget is losing distance on the range. The ability is losing reduction in time from 20 seconds to 10 seconds. You can no longer use the ability when it's not fully charged, so you have to fully charge it before you can use it again. And Solus is losing the impact grenades. So not only are all these nerfs happening to the character itself, but then you're taking away the one thing that allowed you to be useful, was impacting people from below or from the other side of a wall after you scan them planting. Not to mention, another nerf is you can't use the gadget during the prep phase. So because of all these nerfs, I have no clue how good Solus is going to be, but I can only imagine it's going to be downhill from here. So I will put Solus in C tier. It definitely is still viable that you can see attacker gadgets at any point during a round and where somebody's planting, but because of all the nerfs, I think that Solus is going downhill, and I'm going to put Solus in C tier. Next up, we have Brava. Now, Brava was the second iteration of a hacker attacker that we were introduced to. Dokkaebi was the first one, and Brava was the second. Brava, honestly, is very underrated in my opinion, because you can hack anything that the defenders have in the game. You can hack default cams, you can hack traps and make the defenders walk into their own traps and die to them. You can hack electricity, so you don't have to bring EMPs. You can do a lot of things with the hacking. Not to mention that you can also use them as regular drones, so you can have them as a flank drone, intel watch, anything like that. Brava has really good weapons with the para, and the secondary is good as well. So Brava overall is just a very good and balanced character in my opinion. So I'm going to put Brava in B tier. Next up, we've got one of my personal favorites, which is Fenrir. Now, he did just get nerfed this season. He went from having 5 gadgets to 4, and now having 3 activations going to 2. So while he did get a nerf, they made it to where when one of his activated traps gets destroyed, you actually keep that activation and can put it on another one of the traps. So in the process of nerfing him, I honestly think they kind of gave him a buff, and they took away his barbed wire, which honestly isn't a huge deal. He still has the bailiff and the MP7, which is an amazing weapon combo. So because of that, I honestly think he is going to stay in S tier just because of how unbelievably broken his gadget actually is. Next up, we have Ram. Now, Ram is a very nice operator because you can destroy soft walls and floors at the same time. You can destroy barricades and castle charges. You can basically do anything through soft destruction with Ram. You do have a nice secondary and the R4C primary, so you definitely have great options there. The abilities that she has is amazing because she can destroy floors above objectives and then just make it chaos for the defenders. It's very loud, so you could use her gadget to mask audio for somebody planting the diffuser. Lots of cool options you can do with Ram. She's definitely very situational, and I think that it definitely depends on how good you are. Personally, I don't see many people solo queuing or playing Ram as good as she can be, but in the right situations, she's very good. So I'm going to go ahead and put her towards the front of C tier. Next up, we've got Tubarão. Now, Tubarão is an amazing operator that was released very recently who can deny hard breaches and anything of the sort. So if an enemy is breaching the wall after they EMP'd it, just throw a Tubarão canister at the wall and it will freeze the wall for 15 seconds. And then what you can do is the second it's done and the hard breach charge is activating again, you can just throw another canister and deactivate it. So I'm not sure if they last 15 or 30 seconds, but either way, all 3 canisters can prevent 1 hard breach charge from opening a wall and take away 45 seconds worth of time from the attackers simply trying to open 1 wall. So Tubarão is definitely an amazing operator. He has amazing weapons to go with it. I definitely think he's very balanced. He gets a C4, which is very nice. So I'm going to go ahead and put Tubarão in A tier. Next up, we have Deimos. Now, a lot of people thought that Deimos was going to be really broken on release, but after 1 season of him being played, he ironically is actually towards the bottom of the player efficiency and usage rate charts. So according to statistics, Deimos is not as good as people were making him out to be. And personally, I think his gadget is very cool. It's very unique. It reminds me a lot of Jackal, and the revolver is definitely a cool touch. I like that he has his own special gun. It's not very often that they do that and add new guns that are very unique like that. So that's definitely cool. He gets the frag grenades and the soft destruction capability with his pistol. So there's a lot you can do there. The fact that you can live ping people through floors and walls is definitely very broken, but they do see you live in person as well. So there's kind of a trade-off there. If I had to, I would put him in C tier, but currently I think he is a end of B tier operator. And finally, you guys, at the very end here, we have the Striker and Sentry Recruit rework operators. Now, I haven't used them a whole ton, but personally, I believe that these operators are C tier operators. Now, let me explain. Everyone in the world thinks that they're S tier because the attacker is a solo hard breacher, and we've never had that before, but there's probably a reason we've never had that before. In my opinion, I would rather have an Ace and a Dokkaebi on my team who can open the wall together, or like a Fuse and a Dokkaebi who have primary abilities but then have secondary gadgets that can open reinforced electrocuted walls. I would rather have that than to waste an entire operator spot with abilities for a character who can do something that I could already do with secondary gadgets from other characters with better primary abilities. It's so exhausting to explain that to people because higher up there are good operator combos that you can run, and you're not going to be solo queuing every single game. So for solo queue, I totally understand the argument. It is definitely a great operator to have, but personally, I think the attacker recruit is a C tier. And for the defender, it's kind of the same thing. You can run secondary gadgets on any character or operator and just combo it. Like, if you wanted to do the beeper C4 trap strategy, you could just have someone run C4 and then have someone run beepers and then also have the primary abilities and have 2 for 1, if that makes sense. So I think it's a cool idea. I love that it's like a Swiss Army knife. If you need very specific gadgets, you can bring it. It's very cool for that. I think we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out over time, but currently I think that these new recruits are going to be C tier operators. They're cool, but they're not necessities, and I think that they will be proven over time time to not be that great. However, with all of that said, you guys, that is going to be it for today's video. This is my final tier list of R6 operators for year 9 season 2. Let me know down below your opinions on it. Did I miss anything? Am I stupid for anything? Is anything smarter than you thought maybe? Let me know all of that down below. If you guys want to make your own tier list and send it in on the Discord, link is in the description for the Discord. I would love to see your guys' tier lists. But yeah, today's video did take me many hours to create. So if you guys could help me out and leave a lot of support on it, it would mean the world to me. Drop a like, comment, and subscribe. It kills the algorithm and helps push this video out to more people and helps me. So once again, I appreciate all the support, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I am Stricken. Peace.